Wonderful. Okay, so I am going to queue up information for you about our next lineup of speakers, but you'll also find them in the chat box. We are segueing into the section that we have grouped as social infrastructure. So we're going to start. Thank you so much, speakers. Again, this is so generous of you to give us your time and your insights. We're going to start with Terry Supahan of True North Organizing Network and Josh Norris of the Yurok Tribe's Klamath River Promise neighborhoods. And they're going to be talking about the Klamath River Promise neighborhoods, a river opportunities, a Cradle-to-Career program. Next is Growing a Blue Economy on the Mendocino Coast with Marianne Petrillo of West Business Development Center. We had to switch out Sheila Siemens. Unfortunately, she was not available at the end. So I think we're welcoming Sarah McCormick back from the city of Fort Bragg. And Tim Karras from Mendocino Lake Community College District. Moving on next. Blue Zones Project, Integrated Health and Wellness. Jamie Gill, Executive Director of the Blue Zones Project for Lake County, and Tina Tyler O'Shea, ED for the Blue Zones Project of Mendocino County. Next, we will have our fearless and peerless Susan Seaman, Mayor of Eureka for now, and the Arcata Economic Development Corporation, talking about a comprehensive approach to sustain the childcare industry. And finally, art, culture, and community well-being, with the fantastic duo, Leslie Castellano of the Ink People Center for the Arts and also Eureka City Council, and Alyssa Muir of the Mendocino Arts Council. All right, let's kick it off. Terry and Josh, you are up first. Thank you so much. Feel free to put your faces before us and share your PowerPoints if you have any. It's all you.
Ayuki, Nanitswetium Terry Sapahan. How are you, Josh? So we're here to talk a little bit about the $30 million 5-year project from the U.S. Department of Education, of which the Yurok Tribe, leading 16 other community participants in Del Norte County, is the anchor administrative backbone for this project. It was one of 6 projects in the United States that was awarded in the last go-around, and the only one led by a Native American tribe. And I briefly just want to introduce a little bit of the project for us, and then Josh will jump in and describe the day-to-day details of where we're at with such a monumental project. But first, I just want to say that there's 3 things that I think are really important to this project. And my friend Josh was saying last week at the California Promise Neighborhoods Network meeting in San Diego that we really need to not think of this as a project or as a 5-year effort or initiative, but it's generational. What we're trying to do for schools in Del Norte and hopefully and Del Norte and tribal lands, and hopefully in Humboldt as well, is think of how we do a better job of bringing community and student-centered education throughout our schools. And it's a 20 or 25-year project if we look at it generationally, and bringing. And first, I also want to say that we made a mistake when we started planning this a little over a year ago, because, and we got good advice from our friends in the California Promise Neighborhood Network, because they said start small and grow big. And you would think that $30 million is big already. And I had told the Yurok Tribal Council that we had hopes to not only work with the elementary school on the Yurok Indian Reservation, but go up the Klamath River to the Klamath Trinity School District and work in coastal Humboldt and other places as well, because again, we thought $30 million was something that could spread in 2 counties fairly easily. And as those educators in the Zoom room might recognize, it doesn't go as far as we would like and think and need it to. And so we rolled back our aspirations, and I got to go back to the Yurok Tribal Council shortly after we started conceptual development and say, we're gonna take the advice of others who have walked this path and been successful. We're going to start small and hopefully grow big. And we do have those big dreams for other places, because my kids and grandkids go to other school districts, and I want them to take advantage of some of the work that's going to happen over the next few years. And I want to talk about partnerships. We say that a lot, but our partners in Del Norte Tribal Lands were critical in bringing this together in a very short order period of time. We had Allie Ramsey, a very successful grant writer, who had written a number of these successful applications. So we already started the ball rolling pretty fast. Her husband, Kevin Malone, is our lead organizer in Del Norte Tribal Lands. So we were aware of the opportunity, and we pushed it as fast as we could when we knew we had a 6-week deadline. But the partnerships that came together, 17 different community partners to participate, really put kids first. And I want to stress that it's kids and the future. And part of that future is dealing with a difficult past and a difficult history. And if we're going to go together as one people, being inclusive, we have to be honest with the ugliness that is part of our region. So I believe this is a healing adventure that the Yurok Tribe is leading in coordination and in partnership with the County of Del Norte Board of Supervisors, the City Council in Crescent City, other tribal governments, other nonprofits. And I'm hopeful that being able to look at our history honestly and safely and appropriately, so we can see each other, means that we can also be with each other as we plan a better future. So that's my thoughts. Josh, it's all you.
Thank you, Terry. All right, everyone, get ready. I'm going to try to throw a little cuteness at you. Yeah, see if that works. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So
you're right. I thought you were talking about you, Josh. I was willing to support that.
I live in the town of Klamath, work for the Yurok Tribe. I've been an educator and a community organizer and a planner with the Yurok Tribe, as well as a canoe tours guide. So what you're looking at here is this is a picture of Head Start. A few years back. These kiddos are 3rd graders now. And they're standing at the Margaret Keating School site in front of a demonstration village house there. So happy California Indian Day. Of course, for some of us, it's California Indian Day every day. Well, I don't know if we want to get into the topic of borders, but anyway, California is not really a designation for California Indians. But in any case, so yeah, these kiddos are 3rd graders, and they almost entered into the school year this year without a teacher, but luckily we got someone at the last minute. And that's one of the issues that we continually face here in Klamath, is a shortage of teachers or staff that want to work at our site. Because most of you probably know the lay of the land, but we're about 20 miles south of Crescent City, and we're all often scrambling for the same resources that other schools sort of take for granted. Okay. So just a quick introduction. Terry said some of this, and thank you, Terry. But yeah, this covers Cradle to Career. So we do have some indicators there for prenatal care, all the way through providing tutoring services to college students. So that's the grant itself. Like we said, it's a 20-year vision, but this is the grant we're on now. But most of our partners are on there 10th, 15th year, and just getting resources from other places to keep it going. So the strategy is to inundate successful programs and to grow them and to help and nurture other ones that are coming around. So right now, and our focus in Del Norte is on 4 schools, including Margaret Keating, this year, and then we're going to expand to 8 schools in years 2 through 5. And the basis of all this is data and results driven. So if we're not moving the needle on the data, then we have to go back and look at what we're doing and make adjustments as necessary. And I'm going to have lots of canoe pictures in here. And if you want to know why or more about that, you can join us in our breakout session. These are the key indicators from the Department of Education that we measure. It used to be 15, now it's 10, and other folks are urging us to go down even more to maybe 5 or so. But it's all about, most of these focus on transition years. So preschool to kindergarten, elementary to middle school, and then graduation and entry into college. And underlying this is, always improvement of literacy and math scores and school climate, feeling safe. And there are also some health indicators such as nutrition and, providing healthy food options like fruits and vegetables, 5 servings a day. Just real quick, this might have been out of order, but these are the strategies that we identified in the grant. And as you can see, there are 4 or 5 buckets there. So birth to 5, then we have elementary and middle school and high school, and then college and career, and with a real focus on career technical education support. And then we have a community focus as well, and that is developing the community to work together and to achieve goals and address the issues that concern them. And these are our measures. And as you may note, it's fairly ambitious. So kindergarten readiness, baseline for Del Norte County right now is 46%. And, in the schools that we identified, of course, their percentages are lower going in. And then our 5-year target for Del Norte schools is 92% kindergarten readiness. And so we go so on down the line with ELA proficient, math proficient. We're boosting those scores by 20 points or more by the end of 5 years. Those are our targets. And then attendance is another really big indicator. We have chronic absenteeism, especially during the pandemic and in the year or 2 after. And so that's something that we are prioritizing right now, is how we keep those, facilitate those kids staying in school and going every day. Okay. And then graduation rates, of course. So the baseline 90%, again, that seems pretty high because we're just including Del Norte Unified School District data. And if you look at targeted populations such as American Indians, it's going to look more like 60%. And just a side note, that we are, the schools that we target and the populations that we target are the ones that have the sort of the lowest indicator scores at this time. So we're developing programs that specifically focus on American Indian kids, for example. Okay. And then college enrollment. And that also looks a little bit high, but and then the fruits and vegetables. There's a lot of talk about what we can do to improve that sort of goal or that outcome. But the basic idea of it is that kids are eating healthier. And then in school climate, we're going to incorporate a lot of surveys into what we're doing and asking kids how they feel about their school site, kids and parents especially, and if they feel safe, if they want to return, if they feel like their needs are being met. And then housing is another issue. In other promised neighborhoods, they actually have initiatives to build affordable housing. So it's something that, that's something that we have in the back of our minds for the future, definitely, because it's obviously a huge issue here, especially in Klamath. And so here are some of our longer term goals and more of the sort of philosophy of why we're doing it. I mean, we want to improve the quality of life here in Del Norte, and that's when we're talking about, economic indicators. It's really important to look at health and education and how prepared our students are for the workforce, so on and so forth. So long-term strategies, we're starting out by funding partners that have a track record and are doing good work. And then we're going to support them to adopt results-based accountability or results-based driven practices. So what that looks like is a lot of programs we know and love in our communities are doing really great work, but we're not really measuring whether it's making a difference or not. Using our, strongly data-driven practices, we're going to be able to demonstrate how and tell a story of how what we're doing is improving those outcomes that I just showed you. And then there's the organizing component. If we want lasting change, we've got to empower our community to be able to make change themselves and pass that knowledge on to the next generations. So the organizing is a huge component of this. And then the way we work together as organizations, so many of our programs are grant funded and we just work in these silos and, do the grants and complete them. But this grant is really unique in that it strongly encourages collaboration and, building a foundation where we're working together in a constant manner and not just when it's necessary. So so one of the things that we're going to use is for example, is a data platform called Unite Us. And it's a referral service that tracks the clients from one service to another, and so people can see their history, and so we can avoid duplicating services or providing services that are not needed. Real big component of this, we're really big on the outdoors and outdoor activities, exercise, and food-based nutrition. So a lot of our partners are folks who can provide those types of services, such as Gateway Education, and Redwood Rides. And so during the summer, we're going to have summer bridge programs where they're going to be going out to the mountains, doing water sports, doing beach cleanups, all kinds of things that involve being outdoors and breathing fresh air and being healthy. And then finally, institutionalizing practice of trauma-informed care and culture responsive programming. As the Yurok Tribe, it's really important to us that our pedagogy and our values are reflected in the education that we provide for our children, and we're going to make sure that that happens more often than it does, and that we can really reach those students and speak to them, students and families. Okay.
All of that information, Josh, is really valuable, I think, for telling the story. And I want to give a shout out to our data people.
Thank you.
As they help us, all of that information, Josh, that you put in there. And I think, wow, that is a lot. That is super intense for me to embrace. But I know that we have data people on staff and that we're reaching to that are going to help us tell that story even better. And that's the part, Josh, I just want to quickly say to everyone that the state of California is developing their own Promised Neighborhood program, similar to the federal program. And the federal program is talking about expanding from its 5, 6, 7 grantees a year to who knows what it could look like if they have this focused approach. And I think the outcome-based effort at improving our student outcomes is what drives this, both for Republicans and Democrats and everyone in between, to support this. And how we tell the story is going to be a powerful effort, both in California and in the federal government. So thanks, Josh, for all of that.
Yes. Yeah. And I also want to show my appreciation for our data team. This is what our committee structure looks like at the moment. All of these committees have met at least once or twice. And as you can see, we have the recreation of food. And I'm going to just kind of go through the last slides real quickly here. And then sustainability is always a focus. We're not just going to turn to that in our final year and like, oh no, what do we do and scramble? We're looking at additional funding right now. So in how to keep these programs alive. And these are our funded partners, Northern California Indian Development Center. That's the school district, County Office of Education. University of San Diego is going to provide some parent education, College of Redwoods, and many others. And then these are the programs that the Yurok Tribe is going to be running. We're going to have a youth mentorship program. We're going to have coordinators in Smith River and Klamath to make sure that parents and families are getting the advocacy they need to make sure their child is getting the best education and services. And then there's True North. Right now really leading the effort on the ground with this program. And we've already begun the participatory budgeting process where parents get to decide how to spend $100,000 at their school site. And it is it's actually seeming to be a really popular program right now. And Margaret Keating has already gone through a process and developed a budget that we'd like to see as parents. So Terry, if you wanted to end with anything, True North is the last slide. So thank you for listening.
The only thing I want to end with, Josh, the True North might be in the center of that graphic, but I think we work for you and the community in the region at the moment, trying to make sure this takes off the way we all hope it does. So thank you very much.
Wow. Terry and Josh, thank you. Thank you for the time and the honor of telling us this, the early stage of this story personally. I can say that in every economic development and other conversation I've been in where the Promised Neighborhoods initiative comes up, it is with a note of awe. People are really enthusiastic, inspired, and excited by what the Yurok Tribe and True North are trying to accomplish. And Josh, I'm laughing because the first time you and I met was at a True North community organizing meeting. And then the last time was on a Redwood canoe tour. So here's another thing that you're doing. I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
You know, Layla, I just want to, I see that Susan Seaman dropped in the box about participatory budgeting, and we got a call from the San Francisco Bay Area 2 weeks ago about what the hell is this participatory budgeting? What are you guys just not having it thought out, and that's why you threw it into the grant budget? And I said, no, I really like the fact that our grant writer brought this concept to us, that each school that's participating, parents and students and educators are going to be able to say, hey, this is our 100,000 for the year. What do we want to do with it? And have some help, have some facilitation, but each for the years of this project, they get to participate in how they're going to spend for their school an extra 100,000 that they hadn't planned on. So
absolutely, participatory budgeting is a worldwide technique. It is respected. It is known. San Francisco doesn't know what they're talking about.
Won't be the first time.
Yeah. All right, my friends, thank you so much. I want to segue us briskly over to our next group of speakers. And don't worry, we have built in some wiggle time for people to go under or over. Josh and Terry, thank you. Up next to speak about growing a blue economy on the Mendocino coast in a way that I hope will inspire the rest of the coastal communities up and down to do the same, are Marianne Petrillo, Sarah McCormick, and Tim Karras. It's you.
Thanks, Leila. My name's Sarah McCormick. I work for the city of Fort Bragg. I'm just going to start this off to give a little bit of context. The city of Fort Bragg serves as really the commercial center for the Mendocino coast, and it's a big job center for the coastal region. Traditionally, we've been, more historically timber and fishing, and more recently, since the mill sites closed, we've really transitioned to primarily tourism. And when COVID happened and all the shelter-in-place orders happened, the fragility and the vulnerability of having a economy based on outside, outside tourism dollars was scary. We furloughed staff, we, just freaked out. So I called the EDA and I said, we need help figuring out how to diversify our economy. And they gave us some COVID money and we just got to it. We did basically the normal SWOT analysis, looking at everything, and just couldn't take our eyes off the ocean and thinking, this is one of our biggest assets. And there's so many really interesting, innovative industries that are popping up now around, what's coined the blue economy, which traditionally has just been, maritime freight and fishing and tourism. But, it's really addressing impacts of climate change, carbon sequestration, renewable energy, aquaculture, sustainable fisheries. And it was so inspiring to learn. I learned a lot from the Humboldt Bay. We contacted the Port of San Diego, learned a lot about the blue economy and what is it called? The Aquaculture and Blue Economy Innovation program down in the Port of San Diego. And this is how we did it as a community. It started off with a group of consultants and it moved to an all-day stakeholder meeting. Tim, you were there, and we kind of all talked about it as a group, about 25 of us, and then nodding heads and yes, more. And then we started reaching out more formally to create some regional partnerships, realizing that this effort was going to take a lot more. It's a lot more than just about the economy, right? It's about the quality of life for our residents. It's about the quality of education in our schools to prepare kids for these future jobs. And so we really pulled in our partners. We have the Mendocino College, we have West Business Center and the Noyo Center for Marine Science, the Noyo Harbor District and the county, and Sherwood Valley Band of Pomo Indians. We all started meeting on a regular basis and got a ton of help from California's Sea Grant program. So I mentioned the, different programs, that's their job is to help us figure this out. So literally California Sea Grant just donated some of their time. They have these specialists and they met with me on a regular basis. They met with our group. They helped put together this really great symposium in May. And we had State Controller Betty Yee here speaking. She gave a great speech. Hers was especially awesome because she's really, her message was more about, keep having it really be sustainable use of marine resources, the sustainable use of it and nurturing our marine ecosystems rather than just having it be economic. And so it's fun, talking about, we have a whole day of aquaculture where half of the speakers were presenting on conservation aquaculture practices, efforts to raise the sea star and in captivity or the white abalone in captivity so that they could reintroduce them into the oceans. And then land-based aquaculture where people were making profit, that were growing seaweeds and, oysters and urchin and abalone. And it was just really inspiring to see that they didn't, having like an environmental, having a look to take care of our earth and to help it heal is compatible with economic development. And just having those conversations, I think, has been really inspiring for our community, and people are embracing it. We have, so that's kind of the background. I just want to tell you that the Noyo, the group that has come together, we all have our different expertise, and so we're all working together in different ways. Most recently, the harbor and the city joined forces on a grant proposal for the California Coastal Commission, where we're asking for a $900,000 investment so that we can do a Noyo Harbor Blue Economy Visioning, Resiliency, and Implementation Plan. And another piece of that project is a formalized communications and engagement plan. Sometimes this stuff gets messy when it starts grassroots because it can become personality driven or become, one person is having the conversations and all the information is in their brain. So we really wanted to, right now, we're kind of pausing and trying to come up with a formal engagement strategy to make sure that we aren't missing people and that everybody's voices are being heard. And yeah, so I feel really just super happy to be participating in this. It is it is really inspiring. We have a lot of momentum. We have a lot of political will. And yeah, I'm just so proud of us and happy to see Tim and Marianne here to present on this topic as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. I'll go ahead, if it's okay, and share my screen to talk about the next segment of this. And I think Sarah set this up so well that, you know, it really is all about this new level of collaboration and coordination that we're seeing evolve as we're growing this blue economy. We're talking about Mendocino here, but this, I looked at this list and I said, this could be for all 4 regions because there's so many reasons why everybody loves the rural North and the things that we do here. I think the important thing, certainly, that we're talking about here today in the economy is that there are opportunities. If you heard Dr. Eiler's presentation yesterday, he talked a lot about the changes and, you know, goodness knows, we all are feeling a little bit like we're careening from one crisis to the next. And some days they look dark and dire more than they need to, but we have to realize that there are opportunities, especially around climate change, climate resiliency, and the blue economy for our region is one that is bringing some newfound opportunities in diversification, also in public investment in entrepreneurships. What you will see is new businesses starting to grow and rise, even though businesses continue to need support more than ever. Technology adoption, something that, you know, maybe, you know, 5 years ago or 10 years ago was very resistant, especially in rural regions where they didn't have broadband. Things like that are beginning to really change, and technologies and processes are going to be required, and you'll have to have a lifelong learning attitude around adopting new technologies because it will be ever changing. And of course, the blue economy jobs is just one example, but all our counties are looking at new ways to evolve their economy based on regenerative methods. Where do you begin on some of these things? Well, as Sarah mentioned, you know, it's communicating and collaborating, but it's also about public-private partnerships. How do you form them? How do you partner with all sorts of individuals to help support innovative programs, ignite entrepreneurship? And as Tim will talk about, you know, it's the education and building the next generation workforce. And you understand, all the folks who are on this, in this summit, you know, knows housing continues to be something in a region that we are constantly faced with the challenges of. But, you know, new ideas are on the horizon. The most important thing I really wanted to convey today is really the way we think about what is the outcome that we're looking for. And that's about innovation and how do we get there? And it's collaboration. Again, thinking back about all the presentations that have been seen and heard so far, innovation and collaboration is embedded in that. This summit about shaping the change has to do with the change that each one of us here today and out in our community can bring about. And the only way we can really do it is through this collaboration. Sarah, you know, had the foresight, I think, early on when she was learning and discovering all these different things about the blue economy and the potential that Fort Bragg had, I think had the foresight to start to build and bring these people together. What we have right now is something we're calling the Noyo Ocean Collective, and I'm sure the next time we present to you a year from now, this will even have expanded. But these groups of people helped originally in the original symposium a little at a time. We banded together, we talked about things, we talked about grant opportunities and implementation tactics. Now we're meeting on a regular basis, if no other reason, to keep each other informed and about what is going on in our region and in our various organizations. And this is so important to build a future that we want. But building alliances aren't easy. It takes a common vision. It takes a structure. You need to have a place and a gathering and know what to expect. You need to constantly communicate. I can't begin to tell you, in a world and age where communication channels are everywhere, it's not enough to just say, I sent an email or you sent a text. You have to do it every way, every area, so that people can really get the information they need to make the right choices. And you have to have patience. That is key and number one. And I'm sure everybody here is shaking their heads. So I'm going to say it again, patience. It takes time to build these things. It takes time to build the collaboration. It takes time to build trust. So patience is really key. Persistence. And then finally, I think for a collaborative to work, you really have to, each individual and each organization has to be focused on the building of bridges and not walls. And it's really easy when you have your own organization and responsibility to think about all the barriers. But I say, take a moment when you're feeling like that to step back and think about what the bridge is that you're going to be building. And there is no shortage of people that we can collaborate and work with. If your logo isn't on here, send me your logo. I'll put it on my next slide. But there are so many people just in our region, just in our areas, that we can collaborate with and should be collaborating with to do the work that needs to be done. Our state and federal agencies are helping us in many, many, many ways, and they will continue to do that. But we have to do it, each of us separately, and then collectively work together to make these things really happen. There are things on the horizon that I look forward to working with everybody on, especially in the 4-county region, as we're talking about surf and as we're building other ways to build these bridges. But I think the expansion of our Noyo Ocean Collective, I think talking about a North Coast Innovation Hub, community-driven entrepreneurship and residence programs. Hopefully some of you have had a chance, if Anna speaks on during this conference, that you get a chance to hear about what the Noyo Harbor is doing. And of course, the Noyo Ocean Science Center will be one of the next, jewels in the chain along our Mendocino coast. It'll take time, it'll take effort. It'll take our businesses being successful. And I'll end here because this is the organization that I represent. But I will say that business today is more complex than ever. So don't underestimate the support each and every one of you could give to our small businesses. They're the engine. I think it was discovered quite clearly during the pandemic that the small businesses are the engine of our economy and our nation. So just keep that in mind in anything that you do. So thank you very much. And I'll turn it over to Tim now to talk about the education.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen here. It'll take just a moment to multitask. There we go. Thank you for having me. And this is a great buildup. And I'm really privileged just to be able to have the wedge of that collective that is the college wedge. There was, many other partners in the collective that could do their perspective. So I'm just doing my perspective from the college, and we've been so happy to be able to participate in the Noyo Collective and building a blue economy out on our coast. We do have a coast center in Fort Bragg for our college. So I'm going to have some data points that we use for part of the why. Of course, what we do in community colleges is build workforce for living wage jobs and all those items that Marianne mentioned earlier. And I won't go over all these data points. These are just kind of collectively macro points that we all face usually, I think, in all of our counties, Mendocino and Lake counties that my college service area represents. We tend to have higher poverty rates than many counties in California. And then also in general, lower college going rates in both counties than other counties in California. So both those are drivers for us. Of course, I believe, education is the key really to everything in lifelong learning. And so anything we can do as a college and a district to foster workforce education, lifelong learning, transfer. We want to be there and help our communities. And specifically about workforce, that's really a lot of where the blue economy work is based and housed. Sort of the container for it. What I'm showing now, this is regional data. So this isn't necessarily for just our county or Mendocino College. This is for the far, what we call the far north region of California, which encompasses both all the counties represented in this regional symposium. So Lake, Mendocino, Humboldt, and Del Norte were all part of the far north region in community colleges. And for us, where we can really help with workforce education and career education is the middle skill jobs. So those jobs that take a 2-year degree, an associate's degree, which we offer, or a certificate, that's really our kind of our jam as community colleges. The higher skilled might take an advanced degree for a transfer student for a bachelor's degree. And you'll see for our region, just on this slide, the light blue indicator is the below middle skill jobs. So those are usually jobs that don't have many times living wage. And our region is dominated a lot by hospitality and tourism, that's the HT, and retail. So what we're trying to do is move over into helping grow our workforce into, for us, the ones that would have the high green indicator. And that ties into the blue economy with bio life science, advanced manufacturing, advanced transportation, and environmental technology. So those all make a lot of sense for the college to get involved and build degrees and courses that help build that part of the economy. And so that's the middle. And then my next slide here is really about job growth in the far north. Once again, this is collectively the whole far north, and it's showing sectors that are going to have job growth over the next till 2025. It's 2020 to 2025 projections in different sectors, and this is what we use to help build our career education programs regionally. And you'll see I highlighted 3 sectors for us in yellow that tie to the blue economy in our areas where we want to grow as a college. So for us, we have energy, construction, environment, water, ag, and advanced transportation. These are all areas where currently Mendocino College doesn't have. We have some programs, but we have room to grow, and we have a lot of room to grow in our coastal community. And so we're kind of doubling down, working with the collaborative to do that work. And one way we do that work initially, and this will happen throughout our community college partners, so also with the College of the Redwoods in Humboldt County, is we have something called dual enrollment now, where students in high school can take classes during their high school day. And I'll start wrapping up because I see something coming on. And they earn both college credit and high school credit at the same time. And so for us, we have, these are just our partnerships we have with each of our high school and our service areas. So we have 2 pathways, a transfer pathway and a career education pathway with every high school. So they can start getting college credit in high school. And when they transfer, they might be able to transfer as a sophomore if they want to, or start with us as a sophomore when they're completing their high school degree. And then lastly, really, I just want to leave the gap that we are also with our coast is I just pulled data in our system for a certificate or a degree under the header of ecology, biodiversity, and conservation. There are 24 colleges out of 117 that offer something in that. You'll see in our region, there's very little. They're clustered in the Bay Area in Southern California. So that's why we are working with marine science now. We're standing that up this summer at the Coast Center in Fort Bragg. We've started anatomy and physiology because those are gatekeeper courses at Fort Bragg to many careers. So we have a lot of growth areas in this sector regionally for our colleges. I hope we really move into it. That's the future, I believe. And so thank you. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you so much, Tim. Holy moly, talk about visionary. And I love that I'm already starting to hear some recurring themes from previous sessions, for example, affordable housing. So we'll get to those at the end of the day. Much appreciation to you 3. Thank you, Marianne and Sarah and Tim. All right, my friends, we are popping over now to talk about a comprehensive approach to sustain the childcare industry with Susan Seaman and Jade Hoff of AEDC. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm sure you've all heard the story of the cobbler with no shoes. So we're going to have a very simple presentation full of very exciting stuff, but we don't have any fancy PowerPoints or anything. So I'm Susan. The place I spend most of my day is actually at Arcata Economic Development Corporation, where I've been for 15 years. Prior to that, I worked in public television where I did early childhood education. So for over 20 years, I have been really interested in child development and access to childcare from a variety of perspectives. And it's been a really interesting thing to have these conversations for literally decades and for nobody to hear. It just feels like you're constantly talking about how important this topic is. And then the pandemic happened, and lo and behold, everybody finally realized that access to childcare is a critical part of workforce development. And for parents, it's a real struggle to access childcare. And for those in the childcare industry, it is a business that follows no typical business rules. And so it's very hard to really make a good living in childcare. And so that means that the access to childcare is relatively difficult. Before the pandemic in Humboldt County, nearly 80% of our working families could not find access to the childcare needs that they had. Nobody really paid attention to that until the pandemic, and then a survey with our local businesses had access to childcare as one of the top 3 issues that they felt was impacting the workforce. And so because we'd been having these conversations for years, the city of Eureka did a Children and Families Initiative where we pulled together some planning, some research. When the pandemic happened, the Child Care Task Force was started immediately, where we would discuss these important issues. And then, where we would start these important issues. And then I got distracted. I think we were supposed to do blue zones before us, but Layla introduced me. So we'll get to the blue zones next, hopefully. I think that is exactly how it will work. So I'm talking about access to childcare. 80% of the people did not have what they were looking for. When you're looking in rural communities like Garberville, Hoopa, almost all of the folks in those communities are relying on friends, families, and neighbors to take care of their kids. So now that we've identified it as an issue, we've done a children's program, we have a task force, and then suddenly money became available through the county office, through ARPA, through the county of Humboldt. And we were ready with the plan, took it to the Board of Supervisors, and it was approved unanimously for a really multifaceted approach to support our childcare industry. It includes things like retention bonuses, hiring bonuses, funds to pay for education for people who are going into childcare. It has facility improvement, loan forgiveness programs so that childcare providers can fix up their spaces. And so we're really excited. We have some back-end support with some software that will help childcare providers provide more. Childcare providers will be able to do their budgeting and that other business stuff that is not part of the normal part of their day, because if you take care of one small child, you know that takes all of your effort. So imagine trying to take care of 6 to 8 to 12 of them. You're not really thinking about your budget. when you get done at the end of the day, you want that to be easy and quick. And so there's going to be some software that's going to help them care for that. We had some recent research come out, the county health rankings and roadmaps that said the child care cost burden for parents is 34% of their monthly budget for a medium income housing. So that is incredible. We're talking about childcare is as much as the cost of your mortgage. Part of this overarching sustainability plan also includes some workforce parent support and subsidies. So we are really thrilled that we hired Jade Hoff. She's going to be running our programs, the programs that are going to get money into the hands of folks. And just this week, we opened up our website on Monday. And I'm going to let Jade talk about our retention program and how that is going so far. So I'll share my thing and you can start talking, Jade.
Great. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, my name is Jade Hoff, and I'm the program manager for the Child Care Stabilization Fund. So the specific group of ARPA funded projects that we're launching. And just this week, we launched our very first program. Yeah, and Susan is sharing our beautiful website here, made by Allie at Illuminated Marketing. We've got some original artwork from her team as well. It's just, I love this website. Yeah, so it's humblechildcare.org if you're interested in seeing some more of the details of how we got to this point. Our about page is really detailed about everything that led to launching these programs. And yeah, so it's a cross-county collaboration between ourselves, AEDC as the funding partner, or the Susan, what's our official?
We are the administrator for the fund.
We're the administrator
by the Board of Supervisors in the county office.
Yeah, and we're working closely with Changing Tides and First 5 Humboldt and the Humboldt County Office of Education to make sure that we're really accountable to the ARPA funding and rolling out these programs in really equitable ways. So yeah, the retention bonus program that we've launched this week is specifically for providers who were open and their employees during the peak of COVID in 2021 and will continue to be open through 2023. So we're paying them just a nice bonus in two parts. I've had about 90 applicants this week, and it feels like it was kind of a soft launch. It was just kind of through word of mouth. People found out about it. They were waiting for our website to open and got their applications to us. And we have $282,000 applied for already just in the first week. So that's really exciting. And our next program is going to be the facility loan guarantee program. And people are really excited about that. Especially with universal TK coming up in the next year. A lot of providers are anticipating losing some of their 4-year-olds and needing to transition their care to better take care of younger children and toddlers. And so with these facility loan guarantees, they'll be able to take out a loan through AEDC, and if they'll submit a project plan with that, and following the completion of their project, once they can show that they've spent that money in the way that they said they would, we'll write off that loan. And so that's a really great way for these non-traditional businesses to invest in their businesses. And Susan has said many times that childcare owners can't really invest into their businesses in the same way that other business owners do. An investment in their business doesn't necessarily turn into a higher rate of profit for them. And so it just makes it really hard. And yeah.
So, and you did mention TK, which is a great opportunity for a lot of parents to have access for their children, but it's between the pandemic and universal TK, it's just really sort of thrown a wrench into the childcare industry. So childcare providers who normally provided care for, maybe infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, they're limited to how many students they can have at a time, and that's often by age. And so now they're not going to be able to have as many folks, and they're also going to have to do it in a way that's meeting the needs of younger children. So they're going to be having to buy smaller furniture, and they're going to have to get different playthings. And so we're really hoping this facilities grant will help with that. The state just released a facilities grant that a lot of folks were really interested in. But as often happens with that state funding, it's really complicated and burdensome for the providers. They were asking for things like you needed to have a complete budget and quote from a contractor, which I don't know how often you guys try to find contractors, but it's not that easy to get a quote. And then the work has to be done in like a month or 60 days. And these are things that are just physically impossible, not to mention the burden of trying to run a business and get the stuff done in their off time. So we're trying to make things much easier for them so that they can access these funds better, so that they can be providing the services that our folks need.
Exactly. Yeah. So many of the COVID opportunities for funding, these businesses weren't quite ready for, as Susan was mentioning, just the budgeting and some of those, the details of running the business weren't necessarily there. And so yeah, with the software support that we'll be providing through this funding, that'll help in the future. And then it's also been a part of how we've developed our programs. I tried to make our applications as simple as possible while still having accountability built into them. But I just wanted, to be able to say yes to as many people as possible and have, just an open mind to what I might receive when I've gotten screenshots of the PDF of the application and all of these things that I know in like a state process wouldn't really be acceptable, but if I can read it, I'll process it. And yeah, it's really just about meeting these providers where they are. And as a mother of a toddler, I know where they are must be pretty frazzled sometimes. So.
And we found that a lot of people were not able to take advantage of pandemic related grants and programs because they just didn't have business capacity to do that. One of the things that's been really shocking and kind of, it hasn't been super shocking to me because I knew it, but when you look at the income of these providers that are asking, that are sending in money for these grants, so they've been employed in childcare, they're making $20,000 to $30,000 a year. That is really not enough money to live on. And so, and I always thought this was interesting that they're making the least amount of money and caring for the things that are most precious to us in the whole world. Like the people who take care of our bank accounts get paid way more than the people who take care of our children. So to me, there's something wonky with that. So we're super excited about this, really excited that the county took this really big leadership role. When we were talking about how to use the funding that came in for economic development support, I was like, how crazy is it to put it all towards childcare? Because it does cross all of the industries rather than kind of giving out the money in fits and spurts, because we could make a massive impact on this industry with the funding that the Board of Supervisors agreed to. And we're hoping that this is going to be lasting for years and years. And I want to go back again to what I was saying at the beginning, which is these conversations that we had for years that felt like they were going nowhere were so critical so that when the funding and opportunity came available, we were ready to go. So when we attend meetings like this, when we go to those breakout sessions, when we have conversations with our colleagues, we really want, it sometimes feels really frustrating, like, I've had this conversation for so long and it's not going anywhere. But I just think it's critically important to remember that without those conversations, it really goes nowhere. And that's the place to start. So that's my little affirmation for the day, is when you feel like maybe it's not a productive use of your time to talk about something you don't see an immediate fix for, keep talking about it, because if you don't, then it'll never get fixed. Jade, what are some of the other things that what are some of the other programs that we're looking at doing that people have a lot of interest in? We just haven't been able to fully figure out the processes and procedures yet.
Yeah, so we have an education loan forgiveness program that will be rolling out next year. We have a lot of questions about what exactly that will go towards. Will it be people who are currently getting their education in early childhood development, or will it be, maybe to pay off old loans and support people who have been in the industry for a while? There are a lot of questions around how exactly we want to support that part. And then we are going to do a hiring bonus program. And our hope with that program is that we can encourage some of these family, friend, and neighbor providers to become licensed providers to take advantage of that hiring bonus. And that would also increase their capacity to care for more children potentially in those communities, those very rural places. And then the final program is increasing subsidies for working families. So the subsidy amount for families that are receiving childcare help is about 30% at the maximum, but there are many people who fall on a spectrum between, like maybe 10 or 20%. And so our hope with that program is to get as many Humboldt families up to that maximum subsidy amount. So just increasing what the state is already doing. So kind of hitting those people who are, kind of in the middle, not necessarily on the lowest income spectrum, but the people who are, maybe at, slightly higher levels and don't necessarily get quite as much help normally. And I think that'll be a way that we'll be able to stretch our impact with these programs.
And I think we're going to wrap up now. If I'm looking at the time, and looks like we're about ready to wrap up. Just as we go, I want to show you that all of the materials that we have, including our website, are also available in Spanish. And we have started receiving applicants in Spanish, which is very exciting, because I think that often those are folks that fall through the cracks because it makes it even more difficult for them to apply for other things. So thank you so much for having us, and always willing to talk about childcare if you ever want to talk about it. And I will hand it back to you, Layla.
Thank you so much, Susan and Jade. I really appreciate the point you made about the value of having conversations about problems and challenges without an easy, immediate solution. And we're living today the experience of what benefits might come from cross-pollinating across sectors. We know that workforce development and early childhood development and living wage families all interconnect with a robust childcare service provider core. And we're all facing a serious gap of needs to availability. All right, my friends, I think the technical term is a brain fart. It is no indication, by the way, Tyler and Tina, of the value of the presentation that we want to invite next, which was supposed to come before childcare. I am really, really fascinated to hear what you're working on with respect to accommodating and creating a circumstance across a variety of strategies that taps all of the social indicators of health to create well-being for individuals, families, and communities. So I'd like to welcome Jamie Gill and Tina Tyler O'Shea to talk to us about their blue zones, how to live better longer.
Thank you so much. And I'm just going to share our PowerPoint and then Tina will get us started. And no worries on the scheduling.
All right. Well, thank you, Layla, for that great introduction. It really is an honor to be here today and to hear about all of the incredible work happening around our far north communities. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Tina Tyler O'Shea. I'm the Executive Director for Blue Zones Project in Mendocino County. My background is in public health. I spent about 20 years in community wellness programs at the Public Health Department, working on similar strategies related to healthy eating, active living, tobacco-free lifestyles, and a lot of policy work. So I'm just really, really thrilled to be a part of this national Blue Zones movement, along with Jamie.
Thanks, Tina. And hello, everybody. My name is Jamie Gill. I have the pleasure of leading a great team of leaders here in Lake County as the Executive Director for our Blue Zones Project, Lake County. I have lived in Lake County most of my life, over 40 years, not all of my life, but actually getting close to 50 years now. And my background is in education. And I would just like to echo what Tina said. It's so wonderful to hear all of the wonderful things that are happening. I've worked quite a bit in all of the counties that are represented today. So thank you for giving us the space to share what we're doing. And I just want to kick off with a thank you to our sponsor. Both of our projects are sponsored by Adventist Health. There are about 72 Blue Zones projects across the nation. Tina mentioned it's a nationwide effort, and each project has a sponsor. We're very fortunate that Adventist Health has the foresight and wants to sponsor a project everywhere they have a hospital. And I'm just going to give you like the tip of the iceberg here about Blue Zones, and we'll share a little bit of a video to give you an overview of Blue Zones project. But you may have heard of Dan Buettner and National Geographic. So this whole concept began with Dan Buettner's 20+ year longevity study to find the world's healthiest people. I guess you could say he was searching for that proverbial fountain of youth, right? And he found it, and he found it in 5 different places throughout the world where people are 3 times more likely to live to be 100 years old. And that doesn't maybe sound attractive to some people. You know, we ask a lot of people in this line of work, do you want to live to be 100? And if you just take a pause and think about that for a minute in your own head right now, you might be thinking, well, I don't know, because you're picturing what it might be like in those later years. But in these 5 places across the world, people are living on average 12 more good years than we do in North America. So we do have a blue zone in California, Loma Linda, California, and the people of that community are living 8 to 10 years longer than the rest of us in North America. Nicoya, Costa Rica, Sardinia, Italy, home to the longest lived male population in the world. About 1 in every 250 lives to be 100 versus 1 in every 6,000 here in North America. Ikaria, Greece, and then Okinawa, Japan, home to the longest lived female population in the world. So Dan took these best practices, and thus was born the idea of Blue Zones Project. I'm going to share a video now that gives you a nice overview of that. And I did set it up so you could hear the sound, but you know, there's always that, can they really hear the sound? So if we can't hear it, please stop me right away and I'll fix it. Here we go.
What's the secret to longevity? In certain places around the world, people don't have to try to live longer. They just do. Doesn't that sound nice? National Geographic explorer Dan Buettner wanted to know why. What about these places? These blue zones made people live longer.
I'm going to talk to you about exploration and discovery.
What he discovered was a set of common traits he called the Power 9. that might just hold the key to living a longer, healthier life. ShareCare's Blue Zones project brings the Power 9 to you, empowering you to improve your well-being with these small steps by making healthy choices easier, no matter where you live. So how can you live a Blue Zones lifestyle? Think about it like this. Your environment and lifestyle are huge factors in determining how long you live. And every day we make hundreds of seemingly mindless decisions that affect our health. But self-control only gets us part of the way there. Eventually, we need to improve our surroundings too. ShareCare and Blue Zones Project are doing just that by developing a list of best practices for people, places, and policymakers to better create healthy environments. You don't have to live on the coast of Greece or in the mountains of Italy to be healthy, and you can live longer without running marathons all the time. The Blue Zones Project is all about making small changes wherever you are. And it's nothing complicated. Simple things like adding nutritious foods to your plate, reducing stress, surrounding yourself with friends and family, and moving more throughout your day. Whether you're in school, at the grocery store, or on the job, we've got you covered with small changes that can help you eat better, move more, connect with others, and live longer. Communities we work with are already reaping the benefits because we work directly with community leaders to create sustainable, localized change. These small changes lead to huge benefits, not only in terms of economic impact, but more importantly, in building a better place for all. Want to participate in Blue Zones Project? Learn more by visiting bluezonesproject.com. You'll be on your way to living a longer, healthier life.
Okay, I was following the chat there, and it looks like some people were unable to hear the sound and some people could hear it. So I apologize for that. That was tech at its finest. We will drop the link to the video into the chat. I'll work on getting that and dropping the link if you'd like to watch it on your own. It's just a 2-minute video, but we will be recapping those highlights from the video. So the rest of our presentation will cover what was shared in the video. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Tina.
Thank you, Jamie. So a Blue Zones project consists of 4 distinct phases. We're currently in the 3rd quarter of our 1st year of transformation. And I would say that's probably accurate for you as well, Jamie. Leading up to this point, there was a lot of intentionality behind engaging our community partners and collecting baseline data to find out what's currently in place and where our community partners, where we can support these partners and efforts and provide additional resources where there may be gaps. The result of the foundation and planning phase is the development of a unique blueprint or strategic plan for our communities. Additionally, we have built a steering committee and people and places and policy committees to help drive the work and to, of course, ensure sustainability. And like I heard mentioned earlier, sustainability, you got to think sustainability from the very, very beginning. And the policy work and the community work that we do through our Blue Zones project really helps facilitate that long-term change. And so one of the focuses is impacting people. For our people certification criteria. So the ultimate goal is to become a certified Blue Zones community. And in order to do that, we have certain criteria to meet with people, places, and policy, and also community metrics, improving those well-being indexes as well. For our people certification, our goal is to engage at least 15% over the population over the age of 15 in our community, and to leverage media channels to spread the word out, which we've really been successful at here. For people, you can see our website information here and our Facebook. Please, if you'd like to know more, go to our website, sign up for our email list, like us on Facebook. I don't want to go into the details about, all of the things we've accomplished so far, because I don't think that's really the focus of our time today, but I did put it in the presentation for you to just take a look at.
Thanks, Tina. I'll just talk very quickly about Lake County. Again, please visit us on social media and sign up for our newsletter on our website, and we'll drop all that information into the chat. And then you can also find us on YouTube, and you can hear others speaking about Blue Zones Project Lake County and what it means to them. And we are really working on the media component as well. And just a quick little glimpse, you can look at this slide and see some of the fun things that we're doing to engage the community. I love this job. It's probably the most intense job I've ever had, and I feel like I've had some very intense jobs, but it's also a lot of fun and rewarding. But we are, our primary focus is just getting out there in as many ways as possible and talking to people. So we are on the ground talking to people. And because of that, we need volunteers. So if you're from one of our counties and you want to volunteer, we would love to have you sign up for that as well. Our second area, actually, I'm going to share this slide first. So we mentioned that there are over 70 Blue Zones projects across the nation, and that's what I love about this project. We're following the best practices of the Blue Zones, what they do there to live longer, healthier lives. We're sharing that with our community, but we're also following the best practices of other Blue Zone projects that have already reached certification. And how did it work for them? And of course, every community is different, but a lot of times having that outside lens looking in is just what we need, right, to do things a little bit different in our own community. So we have a drop in childhood obesity in Redondo Beach. People are happier. They're reporting that they have more purpose in their life in Fort Worth. And then that drop in daily stress in Southwest Florida, 10% drop, that's actually huge. If you think about the stress in your life every day, it really is intense here in North America. So there are results from these other communities, and we're basing our work off of that. Our second area that we look at really impacting people in what we call the life radius, that's the places that people spend most of their time, which is really around 10 miles from where your home is. And that may be a little bit different. I live in a really rural area, but where do you go every day? Your environment shapes who you are. Your genes only shape 20% of your health. Your environment shapes 80% of that. So our places certification criteria, we're looking to connect with schools. We're looking to connect with restaurants, grocery stores, and work sites. And we have to meet certain criteria in those areas. So in Lake County, we can talk more about this on the World Cafe and give you some more examples, but we're working with actually every school district. And we're working on getting Foods Etc. as our first approved grocery store. Working with restaurants, that one's tending to be a little bit more challenging. We can talk about that in World Cafe. And then working at work sites. I heard Marianne mentioned that our businesses are the heart of our community. So if the people that work in our businesses every day are happy, think about how much more productive our businesses are. It's that chain effect.
Yes. And in Mendocino County, we also have the focus of working with schools, grocery stores, restaurants, and work sites. And we're really close to approving 2 organizations, Taste Buds Restaurant in Ukiah and North Coast Opportunities, which serves Mendocino and Lake County. So that's a joint effort that is happening with our organization leads and our local North Coast Opportunities organization, which does just absolutely fantastic work. Next, Jamie. And so I just want to point out, that a healthy community is a thriving community. When communities invest in healthy environments, they create a place that people want to visit and where locals want to stay. Participating organizations in our sister projects have seen significant economic benefits. Healthy, happy employees are less likely to leave their job. They have fewer days of absences and fewer medical claims, to name a few. And you see the Hy-Vee grocery store had significant increases in their sales of healthy items. And policy, our last focus. So our policy certification criteria is focused on the built environment, food policy, and tobacco policy. And for each of our communities, we're required to implement and assist our community partners with the implementation of 3 policies, 6 capacity building initiatives, 2 demonstration projects, and 1 marquee project for built environment and healthy food. So an example of a policy plan or program would be a local tobacco retail license ordinance. Capacity building, one example that we worked on is a peer review of a proposed construction project with the city of Ukiah. Demonstration project is a temporary change to demonstrate what's possible in a community. An example could be putting in temporary bike lanes with the little buffers, just to demonstrate what that may look like in a community. And then a marquee project would be a permanent change to the environment, which could be, for example, a community garden established where there once was a vacant lot. So these are the policy certification criteria. And we don't do this, we need our community partners, and we need the buy-in. And so I'm really thrilled to report that we're very connected to our community. We participate on a lot of committees. We're connected with the Mendocino Council of Governments Technical Advisory Committee, Caltrans District 1, just to name a few. You see the extensive list here, and it's all about these relationships that are currently in place and that we wish to sustain over time. And for policy in Mendocino County, like I said, we're very connected. We have a great relationship with the city of Ukiah. They actually consult with us when there's a construction project coming up to ensure that complete streets principles are included in any new road construction. And I just get so excited about the policy work. That's where our sustainability in my mind really comes through.
Thanks, Tina. We have just a couple more slides here for you and we'll wrap up. For Lake County, we are following in the footsteps of Mendocino County. So they came on board just a little bit before us, and we are looking at partnering with Blue Zones LLC to run an opportunity analysis to help and rank and prioritize the many different projects that are happening in our community. So as Tina mentioned, we're looking to partner with folks who are already doing good work. Blue Zones is that additive, maybe that extra push, bringing in some expert assistance externally, but also relying on our internal expertise to move projects forward. So we are moving along in built environment and food policy, and where we have really had our focus, because it was a timely focus that we needed to work on, is in tobacco policy so far. We've met our year 1 objective, and it was, get this, it sounds simple, but it was to bring all of the tobacco partners together that are getting funding from the state of California to the same table so that we could focus on the work in a more impactful way. That was what we said our year 1 focus was. Blue Zones provided that table. And because of that, we have a tobacco policy menu for Lake County that is nearing release that will support the leadership of Lake County to make decisions about what should be focused on. And what we're finding is there's a huge vape issue in our county, and we have elementary students who are vaping. So we're pulling together a tobacco and vaping summit, which will probably be the first of its kind in the state of California, to talk about this issue, which is a really uncomfortable issue, but to get it at the forefront and then have our local stakeholders decide how can we move forward to make a difference here and improve the health and well-being. And then we have also, we found that, our tobacco partners, a lot of them or all of them are funded and they can't advocate, but we can advocate on behalf of them. So that is one of the powerful things that, we pull out of our pocket and say, okay, we can do this for you. So when it comes to the Prop 31 ban on commercial tobacco flavors, we've been able to really talk about that and speak to that and educate folks. And then policy progress of these other projects, smoking's dropped 36% in California's beach cities and 31% in Fort Worth. So we're looking to make that same kind of change in Lake and Mendocino counties. Something that sounds simple, but is very difficult to get past would be like no smoking in cars when minors are present. And I'm thinking about like our housing in Lake and Mendocino County. Think about how that secondhand smoke affects minors. Right, so you see percentages here, and we can pull this slide up again in our World Cafe work, but that is just a little tidbit about Blue Zones Project Lake and Mendocino counties. Thank you so much for giving us the space.
I love it. Thank you, Tina and Jamie. That was just a little glimpse into what I imagine could be a 2-hour conversation into every single element of the strategy. I love how comprehensive it is. Thank you so much for sharing just a tidbit. And I'm seeing questions about this pop up. So you know what to do during the World Cafe if this is what you're interested in hearing more about. I just want to note, I did make room for folks to run a bit long because these conversations are important. I am going to make room for us to go a little bit into the lunch hour so that we don't cut the ever important and potentially transformational work happening in arts and culture. So Leslie Castellano of the Ink People, Alyssa Weir from Mendocino Arts Council, please talk to us about art, culture, and community well-being.
Hello, everyone. Leslie, are you here? I don't see Leslie. I know she was here earlier. I may just launch into, we were gonna do this as a conversation, asking and answering questions. So without my partner, I will just tell you a couple of the things that I would love this audience to keep in mind when you're thinking about economic development and arts and culture. The biggest error I've seen made is to get too stuck in one form of thinking about it. I think this topic asks us to hold a paradox in mind, which is just uncomfortable as a human to try to hold opposite truths in mind at the same time. But the arts and culture sector is both a very vulnerable sector. We saw like if you think about a theater that was the first to close and the last to reopen during the pandemic. And there's data suggesting that this is going to be one of the slower industries to recover. So it's true that we're a fragile and delicate ecosystem. However, it's also true that we're sort of a superpower in economic development. We are one of the most powerful tools that you can engage around all kinds of pro-social and positive community aspects. And hello, Leslie, I see you there. I just kind of launched in because I didn't see you. But so hold those two things in mind at the same time. Don't get stuck in one form of thinking about arts and culture, that we're, you know, the redheaded stepchild, or that we are, you know, don't need any help and we're off on our own little elitist island. It's not true. Like, hold those two things in mind at the same time. And I also see the arts and culture as being, you know, here we are in community well-being and sort of a social track, but I really see us as being deeply engaged with all of the tracks of this conference, the hard infrastructure even, certainly emerging and innovative industries. Leslie, I'm just going to pause and see if you want to jump in here and say hello, but and then when you do that, I'll go back to the 3 conference tracks and how we're synced up with all of them.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Leslie Castellano. I'm here as the director of the Ink People in Eureka, but we really serve kind of a wide region around Eureka, and it's great to be here. And I apologize. Right, my internet was working great until right when it was my turn to present, where it dropped through the whole building. So I'm on my phone, but I'm excited to be here meeting with Alyssum. And just to say, you know, Alyssum and I started working together during the pandemic, when, you know, we kind of realized that there's systemic issues and challenges and opportunities facing the arts and culture sector, and that we could really work together kind of throughout the region to kind of cross-pollinate, share ideas, and hopefully, you know, move toward regional collaboration whenever possible. So it's really exciting to be here with you today, Alyssum, and I'll kind of hand it back to you in terms of kind of talking about the way the arts really do kind of this, you know, they're like a canopy and the roots that kind of spread throughout many industries.
Yeah, I think they encourage a holistic form of thinking. So when I look at even hard infrastructure, I think of public art and public art existing in public space, which is kind of an element of hard infrastructure, and how it has just become an even more important and crucial space for all of us to inhabit and really think consciously about what we're doing in those spaces. And I see public art as a really effective way to create community and create social cohesion, identify a place. And if you think about what we're doing the rest of the time, we're on our devices, we're like in this little bubble that we've curated that just feeds us back what we believe. And so public space is so important. It's one of the few things that's left. What else is left? Like weather. You can't argue about the reality of the weather. Public space, we have, you know, speed limits. You can't argue about those. And then public art. This is a real powerful space in which to, you know, form social cohesion. So I see a lot of, you know, the people who are here in this virtual room, other nonprofits, business leaders, entrepreneurs, you know, any of you who are partnering with artists and arts organizations are really, I think, you know, that you're using a powerful strategy, and you know, we're really here for that. Like, just keep doing that, because we're in kind of a renaissance of public art right now. And we're also in this moment where there's an increase in regional thinking. And so there are a lot of opportunities to partner across county borders, to emphasize maybe elements of nature, rivers, mountain lines, and ranges, and work along those using the arts. So I am going to ask you, Leslie, what some examples of cross-sectoral work that you've seen through your work with Ink People.
Thanks, Alyssum. You know, and I think I want to start off with saying that, you know, often I think when people think about culture or arts, they think of it as a static thing. And I think you've highlighted this as well, but, you know, culture is living, and it's the process of us engaging with our past, engaging with the questions that we have today, and kind of working toward a collaborative future. That I think is, you know, if we leave out arts and culture as I think, I may be biased, but I think as a primary means of doing that and engaging with those questions, and I think we're really leaving out one of the oldest tools we have in terms of figuring out how people get along. When you think about, practices that have been going on, for millennia, it's really, we're looking at, agricultural practice, food practices, labor and, celebration, grieving, joy, dancing together. And so, that being said, I think we all have, one thing I love about our region is that we do have communities where, we have active and lively celebrations and tribes and, renaissances of, many different cultural perspectives. And I want to speak a little bit first to within Eureka, we have the City of Eureka Cultural District. And so this is a program that, and I think it's great if everyone has it on their radar because it's kind of being re-enlivened by the state over the next year. So the Cultural Arts District program is a competitive program where cities can compete to become designated cultural arts districts by the state. Prior to this upcoming year, it's been an unfunded initiative. And so, the city of Eureka, it was the city of Eureka, Eureka Main Street, and the Ink people collaborated to achieve this designation. And then, there wasn't much in terms of resources offered, but now the state's saying, hey, we actually see how vital this is to the communities in which these districts exist. So we're going to support it with resources. So there will be new cultural districts allowed into the program in the upcoming year. So if that's something that seems like it fits with your town or community, I think it's going to be worth keeping an eye on that program. And it's a great opportunity for that cross-sectoral partnership between municipalities, between economic agencies, between arts organizations. And so within Eureka, we have a group that's convening twice a month, and that group, has representation from, we're really fortunate in Eureka to have, the new Dr. Louis Wiyot Cultural Center and the Chinatown Mural and the Clark Museum and the Blue Ox Village and Black Humboldt, really active and powerful, like all presenting different cultural opportunities and engagement. And so we've been meeting together to really talk about how can we make sure that there's, hard infrastructure representation, like monuments, plaques, places to convene, as well as, that soft infrastructure in terms of events and, ways of really seeing the active celebrations of cultures. And we had, I think, since, I think many people probably know that, there was an expulsion of people from China in the 1800s in Eureka. And, so this spring we had our first kind of celebration, in the streets of Chinese culture that's taken place in over 100 years. And, we had the lion dancers up and it was really amazing to see how many different people came from the entire region to witness and participate in that celebration. And so, work with that will be ongoing. There's no sense of, the work is done in terms of our relationships with art and culture and really seeing and acknowledging people. I want to speak briefly to HCOG, the Humboldt County Association of Governments, and Beth Burks, who's the director there, that use some of their REAP money for housing to engage artists in sharing what the stories of people's experiences with housing. That will be forthcoming in the next month or two. But I think using that's where we have government entities working to kind of use and collaborate with artists in a really meaningful way to tell the stories of how infrastructure needs affect people. And that can really help shift policy. It can help shift awareness and education around, we really see, I think throughout the state, I know throughout the state, people who are struggling to find stable or appropriate housing. And so artists often are people who maybe have those experiences themselves or have had those experiences themselves, but also, are creating ways that people can tell their stories in a way that isn't, and I definitely appreciate data, but I think that, culture and art makes data digestible and data meaningful for a wider audience and maybe people who are experts in that data. I'll also just speak briefly to, and I appreciate our county, our Humboldt County, the comprehensive economic development strategy, that they've been really kind of seeing that arts and culture can play at least a little part. I think it's a step in the process towards engaging people in, things that maybe the public might think of as dry. No offense, we're all here from an economic development perspective, but, going to things like the Friday night market and really engaging with people on the streets. And I want to lift up Allie Jones, who's been part of this project, this conference, for her kind of work in that, and, hiring photographers to help convey the stories of economic development. And then kind of finally speaking to the Funds for Artist Resilience, and which is a project that the Ink People's been doing, or kind of shepherding, we'll say, that was funded by Humboldt Area Foundation and Scenic and Wild Rivers Foundation, which is a collaboration between an initiative in Del Norte, Trinity, and Humboldt counties, which is Humboldt Area Foundation's kind of area of governance and interest, that's really looking at how can we create a fund for artist-led initiatives that address a wide variety of, social, okay, sorry, I'm still on my phone, of challenges, related to place, environment, climate, social issues, really to fund artists in creative thinking about people and about change. And it's been really incredible to see kind of artists step forward. I think, I imagine that this is the case, I know it's the case in other counties as well, that, we really have a shortage of mental health care workers. And I'm not saying that we don't need to keep working to overcome that shortage, but that, artists are doing that healthcare work as well, in terms of really engaging with, diverse populations, people who might be underserved, and really lifting up their voices, but also creating pathways to participation in society and in meaning making. And then, and just to say that, something I appreciate about, getting to know Alyssum is that, you've been really doing that work in terms of disaster response in Ukiah and in Mendocino County. And really looking at kind of cross-sectoral and artist relationships, and something that we all experienced in terms of COVID and the pandemic. Oh my gosh, our time is running out. So just maybe I'll just shift it back to Alyssum in terms of what have you seen in your community? How could this expand to additional sectors?
Yeah, well, we did some mosaics in Alex Thomas Plaza in Ukiah, commissioned by artist Elizabeth Raby. And they're mostly a celebration of the landscape of the community itself. But we also snuck in 5 disaster preparedness concepts in a way that are sort of visually communicated, not as reliant on language. And this, is a permanent installation in the plaza. So that's a good example of partnering with artists around disaster preparedness education. But I think, to get back to that question of the arts as emerging and transforming industries, obviously we're entrepreneurs, inventors, designers, and to some extent disruptors of stagnation, maybe my favorite. And there are just some really, powerful examples, perhaps not from our region, but I want to point to Meow Wolf is a good example in Santa Fe. It creates almost $3 billion in taxable sales for the state of New Mexico over 10 years. And this is and they're expanding to other locations in other states. And if you don't know what it is, it's hard to summarize quickly. So I encourage you to look it up. But this is a group of artists that were basically rejected from the blue chip gallery scene in Santa Fe, and they went off and did their own thing. So, you know, this is a good example of like, it can somehow, you know, the arts and culture can just be way bigger than anyone can possibly imagine and way more successful. And, you know, all of this is happening in this like emerging and transforming space. So, and then Burning Man is another example. 30 years ago, it got rejected from a beach in San Francisco, and now it, you know, creates 60 million in economic impact to Northern Nevada each year. So those, you know, really bold examples, keep those in mind. Also remember that it is a vulnerable kind of keystone species. And, you know, I saw a data point that came from West Company saying that the fastest growing sector in the region, Mendocino County region, is expected to be arts, entertainment, and recreation, with a 1.8% year-over-year growth. You know, and yet I don't see that data reflected, you know, in some of the other presenters. We're not on that list. So make sure that we're not sitting in your blind spot. That would be a big mistake to make. So we're vulnerable, but we're also beyond belief powerful. So partner with us and use us. And then I think we're probably running out of time. So I just want to point to two things that are kind of coming up on the horizon. And one is the California Creative Corps grant, which is a over $4 million grant from the California Arts Council that has been directed to our 19 county Northern California region. And so we will be working with artists on that around public health awareness messages, public awareness related to water and energy conservation, climate mitigation, emergency preparedness, relief, recovery, civic engagement, including election participation, social justice, and community engagement. So some really big themes are everybody's partnering with us, and we're working at a regional level at this point. And then there's also SURF. So don't forget that. We're here for you, and you're not going to forget us. And hopefully there will be funds for our 4-county region. And I'm sure the arts will be very heavily engaged with that as well.
No, ma'am. There will be no forgetting of arts and culture.
There it is on public record.
We have heard the call to action, y'all. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you so much, Leslie. And I'm so sorry that the internet decided to kaput on you at just the right time.